So here we go. This is part two of the drag time story issue that happened in the Monash that got cancelled, and how this, what would you call them? Panic merchant actors, I don't know, theatrical performers in suits. I just look at this guy's mouth though. Look at it. It's got really tiny lips. That's always something that's always concerned me. People with tiny lips. And how they manipulate the public understanding of what the reality of life is, and how you can contort people from moving away from their actual shared values that they all uphold and wish to protect that are sacred, and have them agree with things that are in violation of the very things that they're wanting to protect. So this is the second part of it. So, and we're going to look into how the use of blame works, denial of personal responsibility, what is a public servant. Some of those things we're going to start looking at. But anyway, let's listen to some more of the language that gets used here.
Now, I make this statement not just as the Premier of a state where equality is not negotiable. I also make this statement.
So now he's saying equality is not negotiable. Well, by what definition is he meaning that, right? So they never define what it means, because if we're talking about equality to make your own capacity to make decisions that are best for you by yourself without any force or coercion or being shamed into anything, he's already failed that miserably, right? Because he started off with the very first words he started saying was shame, right? So is that what he means? Or does he mean that, those who run the show, the gods, the ones who are self-elected rulers, that they get to make those definitions of what equality means and then change them as it suits them? So this is what we need to start really looking at as to what this language really means. And the majority of the people that would watch something like this wouldn't even be investigating to that level. So for them, they're just taking it on the meanings to mean what they've come to, associate with those meanings based on their own personal biases and what they want to actually reinforce into their belief structure and make sure that it stays that way.
And as a long-time ratepayer in the city of Monash.
And now he's gone from being, your ruler to just one of you now. See how he's lowered himself and made it like he's, sucking eggs just like the rest of us. He's down there in the trenches, doing it tough, just like you and I, doing his bit to contribute to the quality of life, et cetera, right? So these really, really important mind tricks that are getting played here, right? This is a very well done script that these people are really good at, that they've rehearsed over and over, and they're very, very well adept, should I say, at delivering the script.
I don't know how many of these protesters, with not an exercise of free speech, but an exercise in hate speech.
So now it's called parents and concerned people who, want to protect the sacred nature of their children's innocence, so they're not traumatized, to protect the children from induced trauma and things that are in violation to their own morals and principles. They want to protect that. He wants to say that that's now hate speech, right? Yet this is what's classic projection. The very things that he's doing, he's projecting outwards. And so it's really important to understand these things. Those things he denies that he's doing, he's actually saying others are doing while he's doing it. That's the actual nature of what's actually happening here. And it's really important to be able to really see how the manipulation, the control is doled out, so you can understand the whole true nature of what politics is. Like, it's really at the essence of what it is to just mind control you the entire time, to step away from what it is is true in your heart and work away from that into what someone else wants you to do, to be their slave. That's pretty much the whole role of what's happening here.
Violence, bigotry, racism.
So now he's using a bunch of judgmental terms, right? The fact that he's using judgmental terms is a form of violence. That's really important, because what's judgment, right? What does it stem from? It's the lowest form of consciousness. It's the ego's way of keeping itself protected in that idea that it's superior. The only way it can do that is if it's lacking understanding. So this is base consciousness being expressed here. So he uses very powerful emotive words that reduce a limitless being who has unlimited potential into these objects that are very clearly and rigidly defined. And if you can do that to someone, as soon as you define someone as a rigid object, the very next thing you can do after that is you've granted yourself license to enjoy violence being committed upon them. And that's what he's inviting the listener to do. And listen to how powerful those violent words are.
Sexism, homophobia, transphobia.
So anything you put a phobia on, right, what does it stimulate in your mind? That there's something defective about you that needs to be worked out of you. And if you're not going to do it voluntarily, then we have the right to make you suffer until it gets worked out of you. Any kind of phobia, right? That's saying that that's a bad thing, that you're not to be afraid of something. Now, in reality, are people really afraid of people who have choices as to how they wish to conduct themselves privately? Are they truly afraid of that? Or is there something about the nature by which that's being pushed onto people that they're really standing up for? Is it their right not to have someone else's way of being, shoved right up in their face? Do we not have a right to, choose what information we choose to expose ourselves to? Is that not a right that the majority of the community may want to uphold? Really important questions to ask, right? And so none of this gets discussed or fleshed out. It's been channeled out to you and doled out to you in a specific way that makes it appear that if you don't agree with your master, that there's something inherently defective about you that needs to be, corrected out. And guess who gets to decide, what those corrections are? Your master does. So he's setting up that the public willingly wanting that for people who actually stand up for that which they know is true and right in their heart. That's what he's setting up here.
This goes on. Ugly scenes.
Now look at those fingers, guys. Anyone paid attention to symbology lately? They might understand that this has a deeper meaning as well. And he keeps doing it, right? And he's saying it's ugly scenes and really emphasizing it.
Scenes on any measure.
On any measure, right? So at every level, you get to, on every level of trying to protect your innocent child, the child that you want, to grow up in a way that's going to be well balanced, caring, considerate, compassionate, those things don't matter, that you want to protect that, they're not being looked into, right? And the sanctity of what it is you're trying to protect doesn't matter. As if that's going against what the master wants, then any measure you are just a source of hate speech and violence.
On any measure, including, can I say, death threats against council officers and councillors.
Here's a real interesting one, right? Did that ever get investigated? I didn't hear anything about it. So if anyone knows that got investigated with those legitimate threats, or could it be like a setup? Possibly, who's to know? Because when all the lockdowns and etc., and those people protesting against, wanting to protect their bodily autonomy, then they got their policy enforcement agents, that work directly for them, the best order followers you'll ever get, to actually come and dole out violence to force compliance to do what they were told. Now, how does that sound in that regard, right? That's what we've got to start looking at, because what we have here is people who are meant to be our public servants have found a way very cleverly to elevate themselves into the position where they get to decide on who gets to punish and be punished. So they have their judges that they pay to do that. They get to do it for them, right? So we call it the separation of power, but it's not, because Parliament owns all the judges in the judiciary. And so you are an employee, all you're doing is you're enforcing legislation. So this is legislative tyranny that's being enforced here. But then you need an enforcement arm to do that. And who's that? They're the police, right? Yet the police took an oath of office of constable, which means they are not to follow direction. They are to follow their moral compass. And they are individually responsible for following their moral compass or breaching that. And if they breach it, they are liable as anyone else would be for a criminal offense. But it's even worse because they took an oath, that gave them the people's trust, that they had the capacity to hold that line, and none of them do. As soon as they follow an order that's immoral, that they've breached that, and that makes them liable for extreme war crimes. Because if you breach the public trust like that, there's no walking back from it. It's just going to get worse and worse, and that's why we are the way we are. And most people are not aware of the true nature of the criminality of this police force. And because to do that, you need to take ownership of your own immorality as well. And this is where the problem's starting to really, we need to start taking a look at our own immorality and the lies we tell ourselves and what we accept as truths. And this is all just one small microcosm of the bigger picture. So like I said from the beginning, this has got so many layers to it, why this is happening. But most people just want to look at the evil from being outside. So that'll do for this one.